Once upon a time, in a lush green valley, lived a little turtle named Sheldon. Sheldon was a friendly and curious turtle, but he carried a heavy burden on his shell, a constant, nagging fear. This fear wasn't about big, scary predators or sudden storms. It was a fear of the unknown, a fear of what lay beyond the familiar comfort of his valley. Looming at the edge of the valley was a great, misty peak known as the Mountain of Fear. No one in the valley ever dared to climb it. The elders told stories of strange noises, confusing paths that led nowhere, and a thick fog that could swallow you whole. They said the mountain fed on the courage of those who tried to ascend it, leaving them lost and disheartened. So everyone stayed in the valley, where life was safe and predictable. Sheldon would often gaze at the mountain from afar. He saw it not just as a place of dread, but also as a mystery. What was really at the top? Was it as terrifying as the stories claimed? This question gnawed at him. His fear told him to stay put, to enjoy the sweet clover and the warm sun of the valley. But his curiosity whispered of adventure, of discovery, of becoming more than just a fearful little turtle. One day, after a particularly restless night filled with dreams of misty peaks, Sheldon made a decision. He was tired of letting fear control his life. He was going to climb the Mountain of Fear. He didn't tell anyone. He knew they would try to stop him, to fill his head with more doubt. He just packed a small bundle of his favorite juicy leaves, took a deep breath, and set off at dawn. The first part of the climb was just a steep, grassy hill, but Sheldon's heart pounded in his chest. Every rustle in the bush sounded like a monster. Every shadow seemed to stretch and twist into a menacing shape. His fear was screaming at him. Go back. It's not safe. You're not strong enough. He wanted to turn around, to retreat to the safety of his home. But then he remembered why he started this journey. He took another deep breath, focused on placing one foot in front of the other, and kept going. As he climbed higher, the terrain grew more difficult. The grassy slope gave way to rocky ground covered in thorny vines. The vines snagged at his shell and pricked his legs. This was just like the story said. The mountain was trying to stop him. A wave of panic washed over him. He felt a strong urge to hide inside his shell and wait for the fear to pass. But then, an idea sparked in his mind. He retracted his head and legs, and using the smooth, hard surface of his shell, he simply slid and tumbled through the thorny patches. The thorns scraped against his shell, but they couldn't hurt him. He had found a way to use his own unique strength to overcome the obstacle. A small smile appeared on his face. Maybe the mountain wasn't unbeatable after all. He continued his ascent, feeling a little more confident. Soon, he reached a section of the path that was confusing and bewildering. It split into dozens of different trails, each one looking exactly the same. The elders' warnings about confusing paths echoed in his mind. You'll get lost forever, his fear whispered. He started to feel dizzy, unsure of which way to go. He walked down one path, only to find it led to a dead end. He tried another, and it just circled back to where he started. Frustration and despair began to set in. He was lost, just as they said he would be. He sat down on a rock, feeling defeated. He closed his eyes and tried to calm his racing thoughts. He couldn't rely on his eyes, so what else did he have? He thought about his journey so far. He remembered the feeling of the sun on his shell in the morning, which meant he knew the direction of the east. He noticed that the moss on the rocks grew thicker on one side, the side that was shadier and cooler, which pointed north. He wasn't lost. He just needed to use a different kind of map, the map of nature. By paying attention to these small details, he slowly but surely found the main trail that led upwards. His fear had tried to confuse him, but his focus had helped him see clearly. The higher he climbed, the thicker the fog became. It was a cold, damp mist that clung to him, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. This was it. The fog that was said to swallow you whole. Sheldon couldn't see the path, the rocks, or even his own feet. All he could hear was the sound of his own breathing and the pounding of his heart. The fear was overwhelming now. It wasn't just a whisper. It was a roar. You are alone. You are helpless. This is the end. He was terrified. He stopped, trembling. For a moment, he believed the fear. He felt completely and utterly alone. But then, through the thick fog, he heard a sound. A faint, chirping sound. He strained his ears. It was the call of a bird. If a bird could live up here, in this fog, then he wasn't truly alone. And if a bird could find its way, maybe he could too. He realized the fog was just water vapor. It couldn't physically harm him. The real danger was the panic it created in his mind. So he decided to trust his other senses. He moved slowly, using his feet to feel the ground in front of him, making sure it was solid before taking a step. He kept his shell low to the ground for balance. He listened for any sounds that might guide him. The journey through the fog was slow and arduous, but he kept moving, one careful step at a time. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he felt a change in the air. The fog began to thin, and a warm light started to break through. He looked up, and his eyes widened in amazement. He had passed through the clouds. He was above the fog. He had reached the summit of the mountain of fear, and what he saw took his breath away. There were no monsters, no traps, no terrifying voids. The summit was beautiful. It was a peaceful plateau covered in soft grass and tiny, resilient mountain flowers. The sun was shining brightly, and the sky was a brilliant, clear blue. He could see his entire valley spread out below him like a green blanket, and beyond it, a world he had never imagined. There were other valleys, sparkling rivers, and distant forests stretching all the way to the horizon. Sheldon stood there, gazing at the magnificent view. He realized that the mountain of fear wasn't a physical place filled with horrors. The real mountain of fear had been inside him all along. The thorny vines were his self-doubt. The confusing paths were his moments of uncertainty. The thick fog was the overwhelming feeling of being lost and alone. Each obstacle was just a reflection of his own inner anxieties. By facing each challenge, by refusing to give up, he hadn't just climbed a mountain of rock and dirt. He had climbed the mountain of his own fear. He had learned that he was stronger, braver, and more resourceful than he ever believed. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the world, Sheldon started his journey back down. The descent was much easier. The thorny vines didn't seem so menacing now. The confusing paths looked familiar. And when he passed back through the layer of fog, it felt like just a cool mist, not a suffocating blanket. He knew the way. When he finally arrived back in the valley, the moon was high in the sky. He was tired, but his heart was full. He didn't boast about his journey. He didn't need to. Something about him had changed. He walked with a quiet confidence. His eyes, once filled with worry, now sparkled with the light of someone who has seen what lies beyond the clouds. The other turtles noticed the change in him. They saw that his fear was gone, replaced by a calm strength. They started asking him questions, not about monsters or dangers, but about the beauty he had seen. Sheldon's story wasn't one of terror, but of triumph. He showed them that the biggest mountains we have to climb are the ones we build in our own minds. And that on the other side of fear, there isn't just relief, but a whole new world waiting to be discovered. From that day on, the Great Peak was no longer called the Mountain of Fear. It was simply called Sheldon's Mountain. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales of courage and discovery. See you in the next video.